Blog Talk Radio.
Choices, decisions, frustrations, and pain. Knowing I'm going to forget her someday. While I still can, I'll challenge all my loved ones, every friend, to look inside their hearts and understand that I will love them. I will love them while I still can.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to Alzheimer Speaks Radio. I'm your host and founder of Alzheimer Speaks, Lori LeBay. And for those of you that are new to our show, Alzheimer Speaks is an advocacy-based company providing multiple platforms to shift our dementia care culture from crisis to comfort around the world. We believe that by joining forces and sharing knowledge and just having these everyday conversations like we're going to today on the radio, we can help remove the stigmas attached to memory loss and help those living with this disease live with purpose. Together, we can help everyone have a better understanding of the true needs and remove the myths that create such fear and isolation for people. At our core, we believe that collaboratively we will win this battle against dementia. But we also believe strongly that dementia is not a disease of one, it's a disease of society. And so we have to work together. And so all of your likes and clicks and shares through Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter and all the other social media platforms have really had a big impact. So kudos to you for sharing the information that we put out and that others put out, because we never know who in our circle of friends and colleagues are going to need this information next. And we know that we're making a difference here because Dr. Oz and ShareCare named Alzheimer Speaks as the #1 influencer online for Alzheimer's, which was just thrilling to get. But again, we didn't do that alone. We did that as a team with you. So I thank you for that. If you haven't already liked and shared the episode with your circles, if it's a Google circle, if it's a tweet, if it's a LinkedIn group or your Facebook or all of the above, those things do just take seconds to do. I would highly encourage you to do that. Every time I go out and speak, I'm shocked at the number of people who are touched and the people sitting next to them that had no idea that they were touched by this disease. And so once again, the more information that's out there, the more comfortable it will feel for people to tap into it when the time is right for them. Today on the show, like every show, we would love to have you be involved. You can call in live at 714-364-4757. Again, that number is 714-364-4757. Or you can always use your chat box and put a question or a comment in there, and I will be glad to read that out loud on the program. But before we get started, I also like to just do a shout-out to a few organizations. I get so many questions all the time of where do I go, where do I find some support and good information, in my own neck of the woods. And so, I highly recommend that you go to Alzheimer's Disease International. That is the organization of all the Alzheimer's associations throughout the world. So if you're looking for something close to you, A, you'll be able to find it there, but B, there's tons of great information. They just did their global report, which is really interesting to read, and they have other great resources there as well. The Alzheimer's Studies Group, you can find them on Facebook, has a couple of clinical trials out there. One is a new one for frontal temporal lobe. The other is for tau. And the Alzheimer's Research and Prevention Foundation is an organization who's been around over 20 years, and their focus is non-pharma. So they're really into more holistic things. What can help you with this disease to prevent it, or when you have it, to live better. And so they talk more about food and exercise, meditation, social engagement, and again have some interesting studies regarding that. And then many people are dealing with specific dementias. There's probably over 100 of them. I don't know if anyone knows for sure the number. I've heard anywhere from 70 to 120 different types of dementias out there. But the Lewy body, frontal temporal lobe, and then aphasia are big issues with this disease, and each of them has their own organization. Aphasia, the National Aphasia Association, is when people are having trouble speaking, and so they have some great resources. The Lewy body dementia and the frontal temporal lobe dementia or vascular dementia are probably the other most common ones that we hear. And then on a kind of engagement side, Music First with Choral Health has what they call kind of music prescriptions that can help people go to sleep and eat and wake up, calm down. Music has such a big influence. So, go to Choral Health, that's CORO Health, and check out Music First. And then Jane Snyder has developed Puzzle With Me, which are puzzles with less pieces, yet they're bigger and they're more age appropriate. And then Jiminy Wicket does some croquet, which is great because it's an intergenerational piece that everybody can take part in and is extremely beneficial. And last, I just want to mention the Purple Angel Project. Everyone can get involved with that. The Purple Angel is the new global symbol for dementia. We'd like that to be as recognized as the pink ribbon for breast cancer. And if you're interested in that, just go to alzheimersspeaks.com and then go to our About page. And there's a page on that. You can email me. I can get you specifics on that. We'd love to have you join the cause. So let me go ahead and introduce our first guests here today. I'm really excited to have them on for a couple of different reasons. One, Michelle Remold is actually an intern with me with Alzheimer's Speaks. She does an exceptional job and has just been a great asset here to us at Alzheimer's Speaks. And she writes a weekly blog for us that always gets great attention and interest. Michelle graduated from the University of Northern Iowa in 2012 with her Bachelor of Arts in Gerontology and Social Science and a minor in Family Studies. She's currently working on her master's degree in Aging Studies and is an administrative coordinator at the Northfield Senior Center here in Minnesota. She is just an exceptional young adult, and I'm just very, very proud to be associated with her. So, Michelle, how are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. I'm going to go ahead and introduce our second guest here. This is kind of interesting because our second guest is Dr. Elaine Eshbaugh, and she is an associate professor of gerontology and family studies and has coordinated UNI's gerontology program since 2007. And the program has more than doubled in size under her leadership. She has her master's and PhD in human development and family studies from Iowa State University, and she's been published in a ton of journals and just does is very renowned in her field. She's been in the Journal of Community Health Nursing, the Journal of Family Social Work, Gerontology and Geriatrics Education, and the Journal of Community Psychology. She has more than 25 research publications in empirical journals, and she frequently collaborates with many of the continuing care communities and adult day centers and hospices. So welcome, Dr. Eshbaugh. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Lori.
Well, I'm excited to have you here. Now, if I'm not mistaken, you were Michelle's professor.
That is correct.
Going to school.
Yes.
And we've had a chance for the three of us to sit down on one occasion when Dr. Eshbaugh came and spoke at Northfield Senior Center, and I was really impressed with your talk, and you had quite the turnout there, which was wonderful.
We did.
So yeah, it was really, really great to see. This show actually, in talking with Michelle, was kind of her idea, and so I'm going to throw a question out to you first, Michelle,
okay.
Because when we talked about doing this, you really felt strongly that there was a need for kids and students to understand the importance of people getting into gerontology. Can you tell us a little background on why you feel so strongly about that?
I do. I guess my passion for it started back when my grandpa was diagnosed. He was diagnosed with Alzheimer's when I was about 7 or 8, and he passed away when I was 17, so it's a disease I kind of grew up knowing. And I just loved interacting with them, while my brother, on the other hand, was a little bit more uncomfortable with it, and he still is. When we go visit nursing homes, he's not as comfortable with people who have dementia now. But I think it's something that we need to be able to kind of understand and just be a little bit more comfortable dealing with, since the older population is going to start growing with the baby boomers, and it doesn't seem like it's a disease that people really want to acknowledge or feel comfortable saying, I have it, my parents have it, my grandparents have it. It's just kind of a more hushed disease.
Mm-hmm. Now, Elaine, I know that you also feel that there's going to be a greater calling for individuals who are qualified to work, with those dealing with Alzheimer's and dementia. Can you give us a little insight from your angle, where you're coming from on that?
Oh, definitely. And I think, I'm really fortunate to have worked with Michelle and students like Michelle who want to devote their career to working with individuals who have Alzheimer's and dementia. But one of my other thoughts is not everyone is going to have a career where 40 hours a week they work directly with or on the behalf of those with dementia. But many people in their career could benefit from knowledge of dementia, simply because with our growing, our aging baby boom population, unfortunately, although I do see a cure for Alzheimer's in the future, I do think the next several decades we will see an increase in older adults who are impacted by the disease. So if you're a counselor, if you are a social worker, if you, one of my more interesting connections on campus has been coming into contact with the interior design division, designing homes for individuals who have dementia, designing memory care units, designing nursing homes for individuals who have dementia. If you're going to work as an occupational therapist or a physical therapist, if you're going to be a dietitian, nutritionist. So it's not just individuals who want to major in gerontology and devote their whole career to dementia. It's people in other fields who not only can make a difference by learning about dementia, but also can make themselves much more marketable by learning about dementia.
I agree. This field touched so many on so many levels, and now with dementia-friendly communities, businesses and communities at large are really going to have to work this in. It's happening, big time over in the UK, and is just starting to catch on here in the U.S. But the understanding is a global need on all different levels, at all different ages. Even if you're a teacher of elementary school kids, it's starting to come into the classrooms. People are starting to talk about it more there as well. And so it really is pretty endless in terms of the impact that this disease is going to have. And so the knowledge base, like you said, if somebody goes into it, at a 40-hour-a-week deal, or maybe they just decide to do some volunteering, it's going to be advantageous for them. Elaine, can you tell us what types of positions right now are available for students that have training with Alzheimer's and related dementias? Can you give us some specifics there?
Well, I coordinate our gerontology major, and currently we have the only gerontology undergraduate major in the state of Iowa. And although I think you mentioned in the intro we have doubled our size, that still means we only have about 50 majors at any time, maybe a few more. So really, we're not turning out enough students to meet the demand in gerontology. The students that graduate from our gerontology program that are interested in working with people who have dementia work with people with dementia in a variety of different ways. Some of them will do case management, perhaps with an area agency on aging, and they will try to meet the needs of individuals in their homes, connect people with resources. And not all of those individuals have dementia, but quite a few of them will have dementia. Many of our graduates will go on and be nursing home administrators. We do have a nursing home administration program. Obviously, you need a very strong basis in dementia, especially because more and more nursing homes and assisted livings are creating dementia-specific or memory care communities, and there's a lot of room for innovation and growth, and there are some really exciting things going on in that field. We also have students like Michelle who have gone on to graduate school. Michelle's graduate work is in aging studies. We also have students who have either majored or minored in gerontology who are going on in speech-language pathology, perhaps because those individuals do work quite closely with those who have Alzheimer's and dementia. Occupational therapy, we have gerontology students who have gone on in counseling and really want to work with older adults and families who are trying to cope with the demands of Alzheimer's and related dementias. So there really are a variety of different careers out there. Some people want to work directly with those who have dementia one-on-one or in small groups. I have other students who really like the idea of changing policies or creating ideas that will then indirectly impact families and individuals affected by the disease. So it's a really exciting field to get into right now because there's just a lot of growth and a lot of innovation. I think we have a lot of time to make up because we have not really in this area done work to the level that we need to have done with our aging baby boom population.
I totally agree. Michelle, can you give our audience a little more detail of, when you went to school, where you started out, and did you stay firm with where you thought you wanted to be once you kind of got into the school and learned a little bit more, and or did your path change, and if so, how?
Yeah, my path definitely changed. I went in undecided, leaning more towards accounting was going to be my degree, and then I realized I really wasn't very good at business. And when I was looking at schools, I always told my mom that I would love to volunteer at nursing homes. I could see myself doing that forever. I thought it would be really fun, so she kind of encouraged me to look at the gerontology program. So I met with Dr. Eshbaugh I don't know how many times before I finally actually declared it as my major. And once I got into it, I realized that I really did like doing gerontology, but then I still wasn't sure where I would go with it. And then I interned at the senior center in Faribault, and that I was like, I would love to work at a senior center. It was great staff. The people were friendly. They had a ton of fun. And I was like, that would be where I want to go. They also had me create a memory trunk program, and that got me into Alzheimer's wings, which is where my passion for Alzheimer's was really affirmed, and that finally led me to internships at like Alzheimer's Association. I took the memory trunk back to UNI and did that for my last 2 years in dementia care wings at facilities across there, and that's really how I finally understood where I wanted to go with the degree and what I wanted to do going forward.
Can you tell our audience, Michelle, what the memory trunk is and how it came to be?
Yep. When I started my internship, we had to create we had a project that we had to accomplish, and it had to be something that wherever we interned could either use, or it could be a one-time presentation, but it had to benefit them. And so when I started, the senior center indicated that this was something they would like to test out and see if they could get their own volunteers to do it after some guidelines had been established. And so I did that there, and what it is I create theme discussion trunks. And so we had like a picnic theme and a farm theme were the two I did there. So I had a picnic basket full of a bunch of different picnic items. And I went to nursing homes, and we talked about, what were your memories of picnics growing up? Did you go on picnics and that kind of stuff? And then one of my fellow students at the end of the summer asked me what I had done for my internship and was really interested in learning more and doing that. So that led us back to Iowa with it, where Dr. Eshbaugh still does the program at the Adult Day Center and a couple nursing homes that occasionally get in touch with her. But it was a great way for me to kind of redefine how interacting with Alzheimer's patients worked. I always kind of knew the basics, but when you're doing a program like that, you kind of learn that you can't have very much structure, and it really made me more, I think, compassionate and understanding about where they're coming from.
Okay, well that makes a lot of sense, and I think most of us, we kind of twist and turn. We think we got it all figured out, and then something kind of pulls us down a different road. And it's funny you said you thought you were going to go into accounting, because that's what I thought I was going to go into too. And I think so many times, we go down paths because we're told we're good at it, but it really isn't necessarily our passion. And so I think sometimes we lead people astray in terms of life's work because they're good at something, but they might not have been exposed or really found that thing that they're passionate about. And I can tell with Michelle from the work that I've done with her, and I'm sure you can too, Dr. Eshbaugh, the passion inside this girl. I mean, she's going to do some big things, I think, in the industry, and she already is starting to show what she's able to do. One thing that I do want to mention is Michelle has taken on starting a memory cafe, which is a big deal. And Michelle, I'm just going to have you talk a little bit, because sometimes I think, when people are looking at where do they want to go in, where do they want to go on this path, and what can they actually do. If you can kind of talk about a little bit about the process and how that makes you feel in terms of pulling this together and, getting something ignited kind of on a ground level and really being, you really were the spark that got it started in Northfield. So tell our audience a little bit about that process.
Yeah, when I started, actually when I interviewed for the job, they kind of asked me what my interests were, and I said, I was very interested in Alzheimer's. I spend a lot of times reading books on Alzheimer's. I'll go to presentations, and it's what I spend my free time learning about. And they had told me that they didn't really have anything focused yet on Alzheimer's. The very active senior center, they have pools and fitness classes, and nothing for anybody with Alzheimer's. So right after I started, they asked me if I had heard anything about memory cafes and what I thought about them. But it's kind of something they haven't had very much luck with support groups in the past, and so it was something they were a little leery about trying. So we started by having Dr. Eshbaugh come up, because I figured if I could generate some interest in Alzheimer's, that we would at least be able to find a core group who could really use the services that a memory cafe would provide. So a support group type setting but they can bring the person with dementia or Alzheimer's with, so they don't have to worry about finding someone to stay with them or having to leave them home alone. And I had you, Lori, come down and talk, and they really got on board at that point and were excited. They actually gave me, I think, like a 3-week span where I had to find a group, get everything going, and the response has been overwhelming. If people aren't registering, I've been getting numerous emails from people in the community thanking me for starting it because they think it's something they need, and even though they aren't affected, they know people who are affected by it and that they think could benefit from it.
So how has this? Because I know that this isn't an easy process. You know, it never is when you're trying to start something new, and when you're the new kid on the block, and you know, you're probably the youngest one in the group too. You know, it all adds into the mix there. So how does it feel to see this really come into life for you?
I find it exciting. I was a little frustrated trying to get stuff started at first because they actually, when I started, were trying to run a program, a music-based one, where they could come and listen to music, and it was a 3-week thing, and nobody signed up, and nobody came, and so I was like, I don't know what I'm getting myself into. I don't know how I'm going to start any of this stuff, but the support from the other staff members and the director here has been great, and so I think it kind of gave me more confidence, too, in starting something like this, because especially since it's something I want to do down the road, like own a adult day center. I would love to run one. I think that it just kind of gave me the boost in confidence that, you know, if I put my mind to it, I can actually start it and get something going.
Wonderful. Well, that's great. Now, Elaine, we've got a question from our audience here. I should say Dr. Eshbaugh. Sorry for confusing our audience here. What would you prefer me to call you?
Elaine is absolutely fine.
Okay, okie-doke. Elva is asking, she says, I'm curious. She says, at least in Texas where I live, there's no licensing for gerontologists, so anyone can call themselves a gerontologist. So what does the title really represent, and, you know, is it, what are licensing criteria to your knowledge in terms of using that term?
As far as I know, there's no specific criteria for who can call themselves a gerontologist. There are certain roles, jobs, careers within gerontology that you would have to meet a criteria to call yourself. But the way I understand it, I mean, I would hope that no one would call themselves a gerontologist without having some education in the area. But I really don't know statewide or nationwide for that term that there are any actual requirements.
Okay, that's a good thing to point out. I was not aware of that. You know, and you'd think that I would be, but I just assumed that it was a title that was licensed. So I'm glad Elva brought that up. So that's something that, you know, people may want to check into a little bit further, you know, when they're working with somebody, asking, you know, what are their credentials, because, you know, anytime you're working with the senior population or any population actually, I mean, there's always people that are out there to do a lot of good, and there are a lot of people out there just purposely looking to scam and do harm, and so you've got to be smart in terms of who you decide to work with in any type of situation there. Elaine, can you tell us in terms of, you know, college, you know, majors that would really benefit from the expertise in dementia? We talked about it, you know, a little bit in terms of, you know, even you know, design and you know, even architecture and you know, building design and things. Has it trickled down at all in terms of, I know some nursing programs are getting really specific, having some dementia programs, but even with the doctors, there seems to still be a lack of education in terms of, you know, because there's so much for them to learn. You know, this is just another piece there. what would you like to see, I guess, in terms of majors in taking on and tackling this?
That's a great question. I see a lot of need in various healthcare professions for more education on dementia, and I'm not just talking about specialties that generally focus on those that have dementia, like neurology, psychiatry, but I mean even simple things like if someone is going to a dentist and they're showing early signs of Alzheimer's and you give them a medication to take with them when they go home, are they going to be able to follow up and take that medication? How do you assess if someone is able to follow those directions in the healthcare field? So it's not just, those doctors who focus on dementia. It's really a lot of different areas of healthcare need a little bit more expertise in that area, and it just really hasn't been provided up until this point. One of the areas, too, that I think probably needs a little bit more emphasis in aging and dementia is also within the field of social work. Many social workers, and this is what I find around our campus, many social workers, when they graduate, would like to work with children. They'd like to work in the foster care system or, the Department of Human Services or adoption. But when they finish, they realize that more and more, many of these positions are with older adults. So many social workers who will work in hospitals will assist individuals with discharge and making a discharge plan and trying to connect individuals with community resources that will help them and keep them at home so they don't end up back in the hospital. Or finding placements for individuals who can't go right home. And Alzheimer's and dementia is a big piece of that, and understanding the progress of the disease and the needs of someone with the disease is a really big piece of that as well. Pharmacists, I think there's a tremendous problem with older adults in terms of complying with medication. And sometimes this is because of cost, or sometimes an individual doesn't think they need a particular prescription or they don't like the side effects. But some of it is also because if someone has dementia, they may not be able to take their prescription as it is prescribed for them, and this becomes an issue for pharmacists. So I really think within various aspects of healthcare, there's a need for developing a broad knowledge of Alzheimer's and dementia, but also specific strategies for assisting individuals who are at various stages of the disease and for supporting their families as well. I think one of the big gaps we have, and Lori, you can probably speak to that, as being a family member of someone who has had dementia, but you go to the doctor and you get a diagnosis. And, okay, yeah, you have Alzheimer's or you have Lewy body dementia, and they send you home, and no one teaches you how to live with the disease and how to live with joy and laughter every day despite the disease. We don't have any, if you have a knee replacement, you have physical therapy. You have someone who comes to your house to check on you. We don't have that with dementia. So there's really still this huge gap we have between, diagnosis and someone going home to live their everyday life, and they may have many, many more years left of life, and we don't provide them the resources they need to enjoy those years like they could.
Yeah, that's very, very true. I just posted on my blog over in Australia. It's a fabulous film, something you might even be able to use in your teachings. But it's all about engagement and why it's so important, and really focuses on the purpose of life. And the purpose of life doesn't change for any of us no matter what kind of chronic illness we get or what type of situation we run into, we all want to feel purposeful. And so it was pretty amazing. I think it's like 17 minutes long, what they have done with people with dementia to be purpose-filled. And you hear them talk and you see, one person jumping out of a plane because that's what they wanted to do, and making these dreams come true. So they've kind of incorporated, our, what is it that we do for the kids with the miracles? What is it? The wish wish
the Make-A-Wish.
The Make-A-Wish for children, and have kind of incorporated that into this residential community. And it's pretty neat, the things that they have done and why they've done them, and the conversations that are had because of these activities. It's just, how would you ever forget something like that? I mean, that's something everyone is always going to talk about, and really keep a memory alive and help people, stay connected. And so it's pretty fascinating, the different types of things that are happening when people get creative. And I think that's you talked, Elaine, about the opportunities. There's so many opportunities out there, and I just hope that we don't, we don't end up thinking that we're too in the box or too structured, so that we lose that ability to be creative, because I really think that's where the power of the connections come, and that's where the power of new services is developed, in people. And is very important, to not be to ignite passions versus kind of squash them in some ways. So, do you see in school right now that there's really this creative element in terms of moving forward and looking at a broad span of how things can be changed, given our, and again, this is my personal opinion, given our healthcare system pretty much a mess?
That's a good question. I think, we're looking for new solutions to problems, but, I do think in terms of healthcare, we do have some regulations that are limiting, and protocols and policies that are limiting. And, I have great students like Michelle who have come through my program, and they have really influenced me in terms of being more positive about the future. Not just for people who have dementia, but for all older adults, and kind of redefining aging, and thinking out of the box, and not letting our stereotypes of individuals who are older and individuals with dementia kind of bind us to what we've always done in the past.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that was really a good point that you brought up about, the regulations that we have to, we have to be responsible, too.
Right.
But one of the things that I liked was, even with Michelle, in terms of her situation, she was, she created this memory trunk, and, it's just a nice creative piece for engagement that I think is just absolutely, wonderful for people to be able to be part of and take part in with that. Michelle, are you still with us?
I am.
You are, okay. So what are your thoughts in terms of teachings these days? Is there anything you see that's missing that you would like to see added in terms of gerontology? Is there enough real-based information? And I think things are always open to change, and because I'm seeing more classes, even just like with the virtual dementias that are happening, kind of the stimulation or simulations that appear to be like dementia, things that are not just standard book statistics and research and process, but getting people to feel a little bit more. What was your thought going through school?
When I first went into it, I just knew that I wanted to work with older adults. So from that aspect, gerontology was great for me. My favorite classes would have to be, though, once we got into, I did Alzheimer's and related dementias, and all my research papers and stuff pretty much were geared towards Alzheimer's because it was a strong interest of mine. But Elaine did a fantastic job of incorporating Alzheimer's into all of our coursework. We watched many videos. We had to read books, and a lot of them were Alzheimer's memoirs and stuff. And so I think just incorporating little things like that are always helpful, and then people kind of figure out that that's something they want to learn more about or do more with. I know Dr. Elaine did, when I was down there, they did one of the simulations of what it's like to have Alzheimer's, with like the gloves and the glasses and stuff. And I think those are all key when it comes to teaching people about Alzheimer's and dementia.
Elaine, what do you see the kids like the most in terms of because I'm sure you can see a difference in terms of, just when people are touched by various pieces.
Yeah, I feel like if you have never been around someone who has Alzheimer's or related dementia, there is really no substitute for doing a volunteer experience or some type of community service to put yourself into that position to see how the disease impacts someone. And when that's not possible, I've actually used a lot of videos. The Alzheimer's Project, which is the HBO documentary series, has been fantastic. I use that in one of my classes, and I have a lot of students who have just not had the exposure to individuals who have dementia, and it's really eye-opening for them to see people at various parts of the disease because they think this disease is just about forgetfulness. Oh, Grandma, Grandpa, they're going to get forgetful. And they don't realize it's more than forgetfulness. In the end, it's about total brain failure, and your brain is the control center for your body. They don't understand that Alzheimer's is a terminal disease. That's very surprising to many of my students when we talk about that because society has this misconception that you're going to just be very absent-minded. You're going to be very slow in the grocery store. Maybe you're not going to be able to drive. But they don't understand the full impact of the disease. And as much as you read about it, until you see someone at various stages of the disease, it's really difficult to understand what this disease is.
Yeah. And that's a good point. I would imagine there are some students after kind of seeing or feeling the difference of the disease, because there's to me, there's a couple of ways to teach. One is kind of through the head and the other one's through the heart. And I think when people have an opportunity to process and really feel what it's like, and empathize with it, and that kind of compassion comes out. I'm sure there's some people that go, this isn't what I thought it was going to be, and others that get really excited of, man, this is really what I want to do. Do you see both sides of the coin happening there?
Yeah, I definitely do. And I think one of the most common misperceptions that I have to get past in convincing students that working with older adults, and particularly older adults with dementia, is a rewarding career path, is just simply that it doesn't have to be depressing. I think of, and I think Michelle will relate to this, we have one particular adult day services here in town, and we go there every month. Michelle started it, and now I go with some students every month. I tell you what, usually it's the highlight of my month. They're amazing. It's positive. They're fun. And I think one of the things for me that has been very important about working with individuals with dementia, and this will show my personal weakness, is that it reminds me to focus on the moment and to live in the moment, because all we have is right now. So it's about the human connection with that individual, being right there, right now, not thinking about what you have to do later and not thinking about yesterday. Maybe that individual doesn't remember yesterday. And that's okay, because right now we're connecting, and I'm showing them that I think they're a valuable person, and I'm enjoying the time we have together. And for me, that's a really important lesson because, that's really not my personality. My personality is to make a list of all the things I have to do and get them done, and then I'm going to think about what I'm going to do tomorrow and assess what I did yesterday. And really, that's, sometimes not the best way to live your life. And I feel like people with Alzheimer's and dementia remind me of that every day.
Yeah, they really do. I think there's great lessons of gratitude, with illness, if it's dementia or something else, that instead of, so many times we focus on what is lost instead of what we already had, that many people never had to begin with, and that being grateful for that, and then realizing that all relationships are going to change. And dementia can be another way that people change, but that doesn't mean that your relationship or your connection has to end. It doesn't mean that you have to stop laughing and having fun. And I think Michelle really gets that. And she speaks so highly of you and your teachings and how you've really inspired her in this area to embrace and make life better, for all. And it's fun to see young adults get that and really embrace it. And then with Michelle just going out there, and I mean, this girl is so busy.
I know.
So many things in between multiple jobs and engaging and researching, reading, and she just never says no. She's just like, let me at it. Let's try her. How do we do this? And she's not afraid to ask for help. But you can just hear her passion and her go-to-ness with all of this. It's really very fun to be around, and she inspires me, to see that kind of.
I feel the
energy.
same.
Gives me hope because you look at the numbers out there of the people that are being diagnosed with dementia right now, and you look at the numbers of skilled care, and it's very limited. And we need a lot more kids getting into this field and understanding. We also need a lot of just adults in general getting more educated and aware, because this is a disease of society. It is going to take a village. There isn't just one answer to do this, and so it's important for people to get involved, get knowledgeable, and maybe your career you're going to decide isn't going to be in dementia, but that doesn't mean that you can't help promote dementia-friendly communities and have a compassionate ear and heart, or maybe even help with fundraising. A lot of us, aren't necessarily in the medical industry for breast cancer, but we still support it. We're not afraid to talk about it, and we have the conversations, and that in and of itself is, in my eyes, massively huge, just having the conversation. But if we could
I was just going to add, too, very much along those lines about just creating a society that is more aware and more dementia-friendly. One of the things I've been noticing lately in talking to caregivers, and this is not just caregivers of those with dementia, but caregivers of people with cancer, with HIV, with multiple sclerosis, whatever it may be, is many times workplaces are labeled as family-friendly, but what they actually mean by family-friendly is they are friendly for young adults who have young children. And it's very easy for them maybe to get time off or work a flexible schedule, and their coworkers and employers understand that. But from what I hear from individuals, it sometimes tends to be a little bit more difficult if you have a loved one who has dementia and you get a call in the middle of the day that maybe they're outside in shorts in the winter, or something like that is going on. And I think in workplaces we need to be more sensitive and understanding, because helping your parent, your grandparent, your aunt, your uncle, if they're in, a situation where they have dementia or another health crisis, we don't tend to value that like we do as parenting. We're not at a point in our society where we're really prepared to support that in the workplace. And I think we need to, as coworkers and as colleagues, learn to support that a little bit more and have some more understanding, because I think people, until they're in that position, don't really get how challenging that is.
I agree with that very much. Michelle, did you have anything you wanted to add on that?
I don't. I agree. I think my thing that I've been thinking about when I'm blogging is we always talk about making people learn more about disease education, but then the thing that always comes to my mind, how do we do it if they aren't willing? And so that's kind of been my thought process lately, because we can preach to the choir all we want, but if people aren't willing to learn or take what they're learning and put it into use, is it actually helping? But I think it's definitely something that needs to be done. We need to understand that, caregiving isn't just kids, it's for spouses and parents and grandparents, and making it easy for people to work and be a caregiver, and we just need to increase awareness, I think.
Yeah. Well, and Elva had noted here, that she said sometimes some of her friends who have early diagnosis get aggravated with. She's noted the Alzheimer's Association here, but it can be any person or any business who represents Alzheimer's as end stage. And I think that's really changing quite a bit. I know here in Minnesota a few years back, when they went before Congress, they had people with early onset up on stage to say, hey, things are different. But we've got a long ways to go when it's been pitched that long, and when we've all believed it that long, that it's just an old person's disease and it's end stage of life and there's nothing we can do, and that's just kind of the way it goes. It's going to take a while to correct that, and it's going to again take conversations like these, and more influence. From schools at all ages to get people interested. Elaine, do you know if there's any work being done from colleges to try to get kids at a younger level interested in gerontology at all?
Yeah, there is an association for gerontology in higher education, and the goal of the organization, we are a member of that organization, is to promote careers in gerontology. And I will tell you, every summer, I've probably told Michelle this before, I work summer orientation here at UNI. And, I see a lot of students in a lot of different majors in the role that I play. And every summer I sit there and I wait for all my gerontology majors to come. And to be honest, I'm lucky if I get one or two incoming gerontology students each semester. Typically, I do get my students like I got Michelle, who, they come here in a different major and then they realize, this major isn't right. What else is out there? And then they go searching and hopefully they find me. But it's, there are so few people who graduate high school and say, I want to be a gerontologist. They don't even know what the word means. And many times the students we do get coming in as freshmen, they're here because they have a family member who works in the field, and they realize it's a very rewarding field. They are excited about what's going on and have been really interested in the field. I will call myself a nursing home brat, and that is because when I was a kid, my mom was an activity director at a nursing home, and now we usually say something like a life enrichment coordinator, but in the 80s, she was an activity director, and I hung out at the nursing home all day, and I'm very comfortable around older adults, and I think that a lot of young people are not comfortable around older adults. And what I think it comes back to is, we all know what it was like to be a kid. We have been a kid, but how many of us know what it's like to be a 90-year-old? We don't know. We haven't been there. So it makes us uncomfortable in relating to someone who's older. And sometimes it helps a lot to just remember, I'm 36. They were 36. They know, they may know what it's like to be 36, even though I don't know what it's like to be 90. And I think it begins much earlier in life, just having young children develop a level of comfort about being around older adults. And that's something that we don't have in our society because we think it's bad to get old, and we stigmatize older adults. And I think really that's what it all goes back to, is we have this level of discomfort being around older adults because, first of all, it reminds us that we're going to get old someday. Or hopefully we are, and that's better than the alternative. So no one wants to get old, but, what alternative do we have? The alternative is worse, right? So I think it really starts much younger than when I start working with people, is just having that level of comfort, working with an older population.
Yeah, agree. There is so much fear around the elderly and how we treat them and how we're supposed to interact with them. And, there's such a gift to us. I mean, they're loaded with so much information and beautiful stories and history and life lessons and things to share. And, you know, I would love to see a lot more intergenerational things be created. And we're seeing, I think, more of that with daycares next to, you know, memory cares or assisted livings. And we're seeing some of the senior kind of leaning posts where students can just come and talk, you know, to someone who's safe and will keep things confidential. But there's so much more that we could do. And I think as a society we've gotten away from who we really are, you know, when America was started over here. I mean, we were thick in community, and we helped one another out, and, you know, we didn't discard our elderly. You know, we took care of everyone, you know, chipped in and took care, and I think we need to kind of get back to that. And I think some of the economics of today's society is going to almost force that back on us if we're ready or not, you know, to look at things as, you know, in a different light there. Well, I can't believe our hour is just about up. Elaine, can you tell us if a student is interested in a career in working with people who have Alzheimer's or dementia, you know, what might they want to major in, and what types of classes should they take to help them along in that process?
You know, if you're talking about a college or a university that has a gerontology program, I think that's typically the place to start. But not all people who want to work with older adults do or should major in gerontology. So you can talk about majoring potentially in psychology or social work, communicative disorders. Leisure services is a big one as well, particularly for programming for older adults. You know, even dietetics, if you're interested in nutrition for older adults and those who have dementia. I do think, you know, most people don't realize the wide range of careers you can go into within the field of gerontology. So I think it's a great idea to volunteer with the population that you want to work with, and then talk to the individuals who are in careers about those career paths that they've had and about their journeys, and try to find your own niche and what really excites you about that field. So there are a lot of different ways that we can assist people as they age. And I think we often, you know, we only think of career paths in nursing homes. And we have to remember that when we look at the older adult population, those who are 65 plus, only about 4% of them live in a nursing home. So there are many individuals in the community serving and providing services to older adults. Yes, there are jobs in nursing homes, but just because you have a degree in gerontology, that doesn't mean that you are going to work in a nursing home by any stretch of the imagination. That's one of the major misconceptions about the field.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good point. Michelle, what other things do you think are maybe some misconceptions that should be talked about in terms of getting into this field?
I think right now, I mean, I just know from applying to jobs, it's not a degree that people are necessarily seeking as of yet, so it doesn't look like there are job opportunities unless they're specifically asking for someone who has a gerontology degree, which I came across a few. But I know when I applied at our local clinic, it definitely came in handy because one of the things to do was care coordination. And so having a background in gerontology and then wanting to work with older adults helped me kind of find a niche that they too were like, oh, you'd be really good at doing this because you have this background. And so I think, and I know I had a panic attack when I was about to graduate because I was like, I don't know where I'm going to find a job. If I'm going to find a job, what am I going to do? But there's definitely jobs out there. They just take time to find. And then I think employers kind of realize that, oh, this would be a degree that will help us in the long run. And so I think that's one of people just don't think there's jobs out there, and there undoubtedly are.
Uh-huh. Well, and I think, if people, kind of get their toe in the water too, there's a lot of people out there that will help them look for jobs as well. There's a lot of connections to be made, and like Elaine said, there's so many different types of positions from, it could be marketing, it could be exercise is a huge thing with fall prevention on getting people stronger, the pharmacy, the social services, it really is pretty endless. Where this almost can't hurt you in any field, to have this information. Michelle, anything you want to sum up here? We're just at the end of our hour here. That any tidbits you'd like to give to maybe students who are thinking about getting into this field, or maybe people who are considering hiring a student? Any words of wisdom?
I definitely think volunteering is a huge part of it. Volunteer as much as you can. My internship with you is my third internship. I don't think that you can have too much experience when you're looking at something you're passionate about. And so I would just say volunteer and seek out the opportunities to do what you think you want to do as a career.
Okay, good advice. How about you, Elaine? Anything you'd like to leave our listeners with?
I think you said something up front that really kind of rang true with me, and that's you said so many of us are touched by Alzheimer's and dementia. And yet, although so many of us are touched, I think as a society we're still tremendously unprepared for this. And I want people to ask themselves how they can be a part of the solution. And it may not be going into a career in gerontology. Maybe it's just being more understanding in your own workplace of individuals who are caregiving for an older adult relative or a parent. And maybe it's just when you are at the grocery store and someone is in front of you and they're an older person who's having trouble counting their money out, maybe thinking, I'm not really in that much of a hurry. Maybe they are in the early stages of dementia. I can just take a deep breath. It'll be fine. So what can you do in your own community, your own workplace, to make the world just a more dementia-friendly place, and to help support families and individuals who are going through dementia?
Yep. Wonderful. Now, I listed on the website ways that people can go ahead and get a hold of you in terms of your email addresses and things there. So if you guys want to just anyone interested, you can just click on that and shoot them an email. Is there a website or anything else that you'd like to give people for either of you, or a phone number you'd like to give out as well, or just do the email?
I would say if you go to uni.edu, and that is the University of Northern Iowa website, if you just put gerontology into the search, you'll get all of our gerontology information about what's going on in our program. And we do have a link to a video about careers in aging. And that may be useful to some individuals who are thinking about a career change or maybe just setting out on their journey.
Okay, wonderful. Well, I thank you both for being part of our show today. It was an interesting conversation, and I look forward to talking with you more in the future. And again, for those of you listening, please feel free to reach out to Dr. Elaine Eshbaugh or Michelle Remold, and they would love to talk with you further, I'm sure. So you two have a great day, and I'll see you very soon, Michelle, with opening up the Memory Cafe. We'll see you tomorrow. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Bye. Thank you. Yep.
Wonderful. Well, what an interesting conversation. Before I introduce our next guest, I just want to highlight some information for you all. If you missed our last radio show, it was on the 13th, and we kind of did a Mother's Day tribute. And so, if you want to listen to that, we had people call in, and I talked about my own mother as well, kind of life lessons that I learned. Our next show, next Tuesday, is going to be kind of a love story of dementia care, and I think will really enjoy that. Jane Sweeney, the author of Caregiver, My Love Story Facing Dementia, she'll talk about the powerful and challenging times that she went through, and she's kind of pulled this caregiver friendly book, she calls it, together. Our last Dementia Chats was also on the 13th, and we talked about the Purple Angel symbol and the movement, and the recent NAPA meeting, as well as dementia friendly communities and what they are. Our next Dementia Chats, again, which is a free webinar, will be on the 27th. And if you go to alzheimerspeaks.com, go to our About page, you can just click on the Dementia Chats and learn more about how to enter that. Again, it is free, or become a member on Facebook of Dementia Chats as well. On the blog, Michelle Remold, who is just with us, our intern, wrote a great article on forget-me-nots, the flowers, and how they came to be and why they're important. And it was just a really nice article. We also posted on there a new film that embraces the reason to live, and there's really some wise words to learn from in this 17-minute film, and I would highly encourage anybody to go watch that. Colin McDonnell with Starlet Lodge just pulled this together, and it's absolutely incredible. But it really asks us, what are you doing that gives you a reason to live, and what are you doing to help others connect to their reason to live? Both, I think, again, very, very powerful lessons for us. If you are not familiar with the Purple Angel Project and would like to get involved on how you can support it, and again, when I say support, this doesn't cost you any money, but how you can raise awareness using this new global symbol for dementia, please shoot me an email. You can just go to alzheimerspeaks.com, click on the contact button, or go to the About page and learn a little bit more about the Purple Angel program. And from there, you can email me as well. If you're looking for an Alzheimer's association anywhere in the world, go to Alzheimer's Disease International. They are the organization of all Alzheimer's associations worldwide. If you are looking for a holistic approach, check out Alzheimer's Research and Prevention Foundation. There you will learn a lot about food and meditation and exercise. The Alzheimer's Studies, if you go there on Facebook, you'll find out about 2 trials. One is a new trial for frontal temporal lobe dementia. The other one is their Tau trial, which is in its 3rd trial. And then don't forget about the Lewy Body Association, the Frontal Temporal Lobe Association, and the Aphasia Association, which a lot of people don't even know what aphasia stands for, but it's when people are having trouble speaking, which many times can be an issue. And so let me go ahead and introduce our next guest here. I'm very excited to have her with us. Marla Kurtz has been working in the field of therapeutic recreation for over 18 years, and she has been the president and CEO of Ray of Sunshine, which is a private practice in home custom-tailored one-on-one therapeutic recreation intervention. And she's located in Canada, and she's been in her private business for 8 years now. And the main population that she works with are people suffering from various forms of dementia and Alzheimer's. Marla has taken her education, her knowledge, and years of experience and skill set to create an opportunity for those who are unable to participate in community-based programs and bring leisure opportunities to those who are remaining at home and aging in place. This is something that is really needed, and I think you're going to find fascinating. Ray of Sunshine allows the person with Alzheimer's to connect to their past leisure interests and breaks down the steps of previous activities they enjoyed for optimal success. Through participating, being engaged, motivated, and stimulated choice and decision-making powers, they are returned to really being embraced as an individual, through these interventions, and really feel purposeful, and she really sees the change in them, as do the families. All the programs are customized and designed to reflect an individual's strengths, likes, and choices. Each component is done with the highest level of respect and dignity, which, of course, is very important, and you'd think would be done all the time, but isn't. Anxiety, aggression, depression, and boredom decrease, while their sense of self-worth and pride really returns. She has been on Canada TV, radio. She's been published in numerous newspapers and magazines, and she's just really a strong advocate with a message, that a person with dementia or memory loss or any type of cognitive impairment has the right to be loved and respected, and they can live a great life, and she can teach people how to do this. So we're going to talk about how to stay connected and how to engage. So welcome, Marla. How are you today?
I'm fine, thank you.
Well, great. I'm glad to have you on the show here. How's the weather up in Canada? It's nice again in Minnesota. It was horrible here yesterday.
Oh, we're having back and forth weather, but we're hoping to have spring soon. It's been cold, but it's warmer. But believe it or not, we had a really harsh winter, so now people at least are being able to go outside.
Uh-huh. Well, that's nice. Yeah, it's supposed to. They were talking maybe up to 80 today, and yesterday was just cold, and we got so much rain. I don't even know how much fell, but it was a lot. So it's nice that the weather has changed once again. Well, I'm really interested in the work that you're doing, and the approach that you're taking is really different from anybody that I've heard out there. Most people, it's you come to me, and we'll do some therapy here, but you are not only going out to the house, but you are really bringing recreational therapy inward at a level I've never seen before. So can you talk to us a little bit of why did you decide to build your business the way you did? Was it because no one else was doing it, and you just saw the need?
When I was in my program in school, I really felt, and being in different organizations and doing my field placement in a tremendous institution here in Toronto, Ontario, the Baycrest Center, I said, there's got to be a way to reach out to other people. And so I started to develop my Ray of Sunshine business while I was still a student in therapeutic recreation and keeping it on the back burner. It was more, at that time I was looking more at a concierge type of business, but I started to develop how are people being reached. If they're not coming into the organizations, if they're not coming to adult day programs, if they're not connected to their church or their synagogue, their sisterhoods, what are they doing all day? And what I really started to realize is, even back then, there's a tremendous amount of people who are remaining at home with nothing to do all day long. And how can we get them reconnected, re-engaged? And really, it was by chance that I started to create a portfolio of programs that I felt one day would be the right impetus for me to do my business. And upon graduation and my 2 years of field placement, I was actually hired by my institution, where I worked for over 12 years in different capacities and gained a tremendous amount of knowledge and insight from a medical perspective, from a person-centered care perspective, and took all that information and said, okay, it's the right time. So I didn't really know how to begin, and I was fortunate enough to have someone hear about what I wanted to do and said to me, there are so many people who need these services. And I said, well, I just don't know how to begin. And the individual said, well, when there's a will, there's a way. And 3 hours later, this individual called me and said, I've called the first 3 people who are interested in your services, and begin. Wow. And from that day forth, I began.
Wow, that's exciting. That's exciting. Can you tell us, how do most people, what is your impression of most people who suffer from Alzheimer's or depression spend their day when they're living at home versus what you can do to shift that for them? What are some of the downfalls that you see that are kind of normal traps for families?
Well, families are so overburdened today with our situation of what I call the tsunami of Alzheimer's and dementia taking place, that families are in a crisis situation most often. They're trying to arrange a safe environment, caregivers that will treat them, their families, and suffice all the needs that need to be done, the immediate physical needs, and trying to manage all the medications and medical appointments, and they forget, through no fault of their own, that this individual is sitting at home, not being stimulated or motivated or engaged throughout the day. Mm-hmm. So how they're kind of given lack of independence and choice and decision-making powers, even being in their own home. They lose their voice. They are told from the moment that they wake up till the moment that they go to bed what to do and how to do it. Through no fault of the caregiver or the family, everyone works very hard to make sure that the person is the best possible way they can, but everything requires them to just follow suit. Whether it's being told how, it's time to get up, get dressed, take your medication, eat your breakfast. All the tasks need to be completed, but really, throughout that whole process, there could be major change in choice and decision-making power. For example, how we do it at Ray of Sunshine, we do a lot of caregiver training sessions for families and the hired caregiver person in the home. Instead of just saying, okay, now is the time to get dressed, lay out 2 different outfits on the bed and give that person the opportunity to choose what they are going to dress in that day. Once you give back a person their voice and their choice and decision-making power, their self-esteem increases tremendously. They feel like they're part of society. Someone wants to know my opinion. I count. And through our different interventions that we've created, they are given that choice and decision-making power in every aspect of the program, to where they sit, how they administer any type of material, if they choose to do the program or not, and breaking down this barrier that people who suffer from dementia and Alzheimer's can't accomplish. They can do so much throughout their day. Everything can be, as much as possible, their choice. It's learning respect, dignity, and a certain language that's going to empower them.
Yeah, I agree. We've got one person here in our chat box that says, is there a photo of Marla in the black jacket with the long brown hair? And I'm like, yep, that's her. And she says, this is so interesting. There's such a huge need for this. She's been testing out tablet computers, which are easy to operate and connect to the Internet, capable of video conferencing. And she's going to fund a pilot study with her own money to buy 10 tablets to give people with early onset as a trial to see if by connecting with others through video conferencing, if they can, if that can help them find purpose in terms of connecting with their cohorts and education and churches and businesses. I mean, all of those types of things. Well, any thoughts on using electronics?
That's very interesting. I had one of my first individuals that I worked with. He actually had his master's in agriculture from a university, and I was doing some computer training with him. He was very interested in finding out about the university as it was that day, and we did some research together on the computer and found his picture in an archive, and we formulated a letter together to the president of the university that asked for all the archival pictures of that year so that he could have them and show them to his family, and that he could they wanted his opinion, and they even invited him to one of the graduations, and we connected with his past, which was tremendous. And the fact that he was, a master's in agriculture, and then he became quite a large builder and developer, carried through, but it was his whole passion that he got to speak to a group of individuals through the use of technology about, hey, I was there way before you. I have a lot to offer. Look what I've become, and I'm an alumni, and I'm an important person. And when we got that, and I sent this letter with him, not really knowing if anyone is even going to pick up the letter, within a day, the president himself sent back this letter and said, we are so honored that you considered writing to us and that you took the time to show, and we are now going to try and connect more past alumni from your cohort and age to see if we can do something to teach the young why this university was so important back then.
Wow.
It made him, it lightened up his entire day. His family was blown away. His company individuals were blown away. And this gave him such a purposeful act that he wanted to learn more about the computer. So we taught him together how to look onto different sites of interest, the philanthropic institutions that he supported. And this gave him a buildup of component of his day that he became technologically focused, whereas before the computer was in his room and nothing was happening.
Mhm. Wow.
So that was my first experience with how technology can really assist. I was blown away, absolutely blown away. And I was really impressed with the university taking the time and noticing, appreciating, and respecting someone of his age cohort, stature. They didn't have to do that, but that's what people need to do. People need to realize the elderly have so much to teach us, no matter what their state or cognitive abilities are. They have experienced so much in life that we can't even fathom what they've gone through, from the changes that they've seen throughout their lives and how they're part of our world today. It's an amazing thing. And if people took the time to speak to people with a cognitive impairment, with Alzheimer's, with dementia, they would see that it's not very hard to communicate when you use a respectful language in a dignified way, and you want to use their intelligence, and you want to appeal to their intelligence, and you want to make sure that they have something to teach us. And that's what we strive to do at Ray of Sunshine. They have a skill. We have to break down that skill and make sure that we're all learning together. for a successful intervention.
Yeah, that's very important. Very important for people to be able to learn and connect. I think that's a great story. Can you tell us, one of the problems, with dementia can be the fact that when it comes to decision making, sometimes we just ask too complicated of questions. So can you, kind of describe to people how you maybe break things down so tasks are smaller for people to engage? I'm assuming.
Well,
that
you
that's
certainly don't want to set anyone up for failure. So you don't want to give 10 different options to an individual who might be suffering from Alzheimer's or a form of dementia. Like I said, you want to do 1 or 2 choice opportunities. And, for example, when we walk into someone's home, the first thing we observe is, where is that person sitting? So we ask, is this the place that you sit during the day? And they say, no, that's really my chair over there. So the caregiver takes that cue, places the person in that chair, and the next thing we ask is permission. Would it be okay if I took a chair and sat beside you? So that's how a question can be formed. If you're going to ask questions about, so what'd you have for breakfast today? That's not going to happen. They're not going to remember. But if you're looking at them and they're in the moment, you want to ask the questions that they're going to be able to understand and answer. Ask them simply, how would you like to do something different today? Would you like to try something today, perhaps? I'll give you an example. We were working with an individual who was an avid fisherman, and he used to go many, many different places to fish. Now the person is homebound. Now the person has a memory impairment, can't really get on a boat and go all different places fishing. So we adapted a fishing intervention program, and we simply said, we'd really like to take you fishing, but today we know that we can't do that. However, we brought a fishing component for you today. Would it be okay to try that? And everybody around the room who was watching said, oh my gosh, this just won't work. He's going to say no. Well, his eyes lit up and said, let's give it a try. Now, it was an adaptable fishing pole with obviously not real fish, but in that moment, he really felt like he was fishing somewhere. His eyes, his face, he was in that perfect moment of zen that we call complete leisure experience. Didn't matter that he had a cognitive impairment, didn't matter that he was no mobility and bound to a wheelchair, didn't matter that he was in his own home. At that moment, he truly felt he was fishing.
Mhm. And that's all that matters. Sometimes I think we think that, if we break something down, people might think, well, they're going to think that it's childish, because it's not the real thing. And I think a lot of it has to do with how we present it.
Well, how you have to present things to an adult who is older than yourself is in a very dignified, respectable language. And I think most people don't realize or forget that someone who's older than you deserves that respect, no matter what their cognitive level is. There has to be respect for the elders. It's a biblical saying, right? Respect your elders. Mm-hmm. And if you show them the respect and you talk in a dignified, adult-like manner, the response will be most often a positive response. If you're going to talk to an individual in a childlike manner, they're not going to feel empowered. They're not going to feel motivated. Why would someone want to do something when they're being told what to do or they're being treated as a child. They're not children. Yet they're not useless individuals anymore. They really have so much that they can do.
Can you give our audience some what you would say would be inappropriate ways to say the same thing, so that people have examples? I know a lot of times people will talk in a childish voice, or use different names. Are there any examples specific that you could give us?
Many times, caregivers, for no fault of their own, try very hard to motivate their person that they're working with, and people don't realize the language is so important. So instead of a successful, what's the term, I guess, once an intervention is done and you say to an individual, that was really a wonderful thing. I really am happy that you were able to do that, as opposed to someone clapping and saying, "Yay, good for you, Grandpa." There's a whole different language. You get your back up when you hear someone clapping and using that high-pitched, childlike voice.
Mm-hmm.
So
and
that's a big thing.
Mm-hmm. And I would imagine there'll be some, you have to know your person too, because there might be some people that really respond to that as well, depending on where they are in the disease. So I think it's always, you have to know your person, or sometimes it's language. People won't use a name and they'll say honey or sweetie, or and those things to some people can be really condescending as well. I think.
Oh, definitely. There's always a way that when we enter a home and we introduce ourselves, the first thing we ask is, what is the name of the person we're going to be working with? Well, right away, they're a Mr. or a Mrs. until they identify, call me John, or call me Robert, or you can call me Claire. You have to take the cues from them themselves.
Mm-hmm.
It's very important to address them the way that they would want to be addressed.
Yeah. Now, when you talk with families, do you ask them outright, what are you doing to provide kind of leisure opportunities for them, or purposeful engagement, to see what's been done and then how it's been received?
Most often, families will contact us and say, my parent's doing nothing all day. My grandfather does nothing all day. My grandfather used to do this, this, and this, and now he just sits in the house. We used to take him out. Now he doesn't want to leave. He used to play chess. Now he can't do that anymore. My grandmother used to play rummy, and now she can't remember how the cards work.
Mm-hmm.
So then the question is, well, what else are you doing throughout the day? And unfortunately, 90% of the time is, well, there's nothing to do. I don't know what to do. And this is where we train the families to engage with the person. And so what we try and do is get as much information from the family member about what they did together with their parent, their grandparent, their spouse, and see what that activity was, and see how we can reconnect and get that activity going, even if it's not at the highest level previously, how we can get them going at that same activity.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you an example. I had a couple who were avid tennis players, and then arthritis struck one spouse, and a different illness struck another spouse that made him really not able to stand up, and his balance was off, plus a form of dementia. And here are two people that played tennis together all their lives. So we went into the house and we determined the upper body strength is still there because they played tennis for so many years, and they had the ability still to understand how to volley a racket. So we took very light badminton rackets with a balloon. Mm-hmm. And what we did is we retaught each one to use the volleying and the balloon, and then we created in the home a makeshift tennis court with just a net, and they were both seated, and every day, for a component of their day, they had their tennis playing. And that gave them a chance to work with each other. It gave them a chance to expand their energy. It gave them a chance to still maintain some level of independent leisure activity. And it connected them to what they loved most, which was participating in a tennis type of environment. Mm-hmm. And when the families walked in and saw them doing this, it was their whole world opened up again. Then the discussions came in about which tennis rackets they used. Everybody brought down from the attic the tennis rackets, the tennis outfits, and the family got very involved in, okay, this is their time for tennis. And once that activity was in session and it was completed, the couple's level of self-satisfaction, accomplishment, and the outcome made them much different throughout the day. Staff at the home reported that medication was able to be administered in a much more calm way. Everybody wanted to participate in the meal after because they had something engaging, stimulating to look forward to throughout that day.
Mm-hmm. What is the reaction to families when you come in and institute these changes? What do families say?
Families are so nervous when they contact us because they believe that their family member will never do anything. We won't even get in through the door. They'll see that this is so, in their eyes, demeaning, and they're very nervous to present this opportunity. Mm-hmm. So what we do is we go in and can do a completely oral assessment that we've created in a non-clinical, non-threatening environment. I think that's really the main component of any type of successful opportunity, no matter who you are, if you're a grandchild or if you're a spouse or a daughter or a son of someone who's suffering. It can't be threatening. Don't ask the person, what day is it today? Don't ask the questions that they can't answer. Have a discussion on what's familiar to them. Ask them their opinion on something that they definitely have a large-based knowledge of. So when we go in, we try to get them comfortable in engagement, and through that, we're able to, through the questions that we ask, which is in the form of a conversation, we're able to assess so many of the things that are questionable in their lives. When we speak with our voice, are they able to understand? Are they following the question? Is there a hearing impairment going on? Are they following what we're saying? Everything can be assessed in a non-clinical, non-threatening environment.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting that you say, families don't think that there's anything that they can do, and I think part of it is, again, the lack of education in terms of the disease and the fast pace of life and the overcommitment that we have, to life. Where there's just not much time, and so people are trying to figure out how to squeeze things in, And it's very interesting. Alva has just written in here. She says, I'm 68 years old, and she just detests it when a store clerk calls her sweetie, which we were kind of talking about before. Please don't call
Absolutely.
me sweetie, because it sounds condescending to me, like you're speaking to a 3-year-old. Not all of my friends agree and say that it's a Southern thing and not meant to be disrespectful. But she's just saying it's better to avoid using a term like that because it can be tricky, depending on
Absolutely.
who you're talking to.
When we train family and caregivers, nobody is cute. Nobody is adorable. They're not children and they're not pets. When I hear people, even out in the streets, and I say, "Oh, look at that cute person," I turn around and I say, that's really not respectful. I had a conversation with some young people who were interested in knowing about the field of therapeutic recreation. And my first question is, do you enjoy being around older people? And so many kids respond with, yeah, they're so cute, they're so adorable, they're so yummy. Wrong language to use. I stop them right away. My back gets right up, and I say, you cannot be involved with someone when you don't have that level and lack of respect.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to educate people wherever I go about how important it is. When you're in the field, you can see who's in the stores, like you were talking about before, who's in the store that can't find the canned goods that they're looking for, who's at the cash register, who's at the bank that doesn't know how to form the line properly. You get to know the signs and symbols of people, and you want to show an example that people out there today, especially through Alzheimer's Speaks, I've learned so much about the fact that there are really people out thriving in the community who are suffering from different levels of dementia and Alzheimer's, but are being viable members of society, and they do need our assistance, and we all should look around and see someone who can't open the door, someone who can't make change at the cash register, recognize it and assist.
Yeah. I don't know why we're so afraid to do that, and and I think part of the whole verbiage thing, we have to train people on what is respectful and what's not, because they really, I think, truly don't know, and they think they're being helpful and they think they're being respectful, and it's not always taken that way. So again, it gets down to knowing your audience. And
Definitely.
when we don't slow down enough to know our audience, then we take the risk of not being dignified and possibly harming somebody, or hurting their feelings, which I think many times is not the intent, but can happen when we just don't slow down enough to think and to process.
Absolutely.
or even to watch someone's reaction. We're so wrapped up in what we're doing that we forget to take in the critical information that many times is non-verbally transmitted to us, and we need to be much more aware of that. Elva also had noted, she said one of her favorite books is called Contented Dementia, and it was a book written by Oliver James in the UK, and it was based on his mother-in-law. She said it's a great work, and it has wonderful information on how to communicate and what we do wrong. She's asking, do you think people with dementia would want to voluntarily wear a color of silicone bracelet that would identify them so clerks could take a little extra time? Would that be helpful, or would that identify them as targets for unscrupulous people? And I think that's a real risk. Because, as this population becomes more and more pronounced, I think the scammers are going to be out there, looking for it. So to me, I think we have to be very careful on how that information is disseminated. Do you have any thoughts on that, Marla?
It's interesting when we work with people who are suffering from Alzheimer's. I like to ask, and we like to ask the families, are they registered with the Alzheimer's Society? Mm-hmm. I would say 99% aren't, because of that stigma of they won't wear that bracelet. Mm-hmm. And we are all more concerned with the safety factor. If someone should get up in the middle of the night and their home is not, secure, and they walk out the door, how are they going to find that individual? And that's one component of it. I think that if someone was wearing a bracelet that identified themselves, I would like to believe that people would recognize that they need assistance, but in the society that we're in today, the lack of knowledge and education and the use of the fact that people really don't take the time to respect and care about the elderly, I think it would backfire, and it would be a very dangerous type of situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do. And, I think when it comes to the bracelets too, that this is it's something that shouldn't be one-sided. I think both sides need to wear these bracelets. The care partner and the person with dementia, if you're going to do something on that order. And it can be, there's the UBS bracelets that are out there, so in an emergency somebody can plug it in and get some information. But I even think on those, definitely no social security numbers, no home address. You can put in other information, and you can put in phone numbers for others for them to talk to. But we have to be really, really careful. There's so much hacking going on, with all of our information on the internet, and we have to be really careful with that. And my level of trust keeps going down. I hate to say it.
I unfortunately believe also, working in the population. And, working in the population the majority of the day, which is not really social media connected, which is really tactile, which is really calming, makes you truly believe that there is good out there. And when you see the change in a person, someone who you began services for 2 weeks prior to that could barely keep their eyes open, and after connecting with them, figuring out what would work for them, and walking in that door and their eyes light up and they know that there's going to be purposeful, goal-oriented, outcome, activity-based things happening, and looking at their eyes when you're accomplished, it makes you kind of feel positive about society in a certain way. In the old society, I guess is what you want to say. It's very rewarding, and we're very passionate about what we do and what we take on each family, each person with our heart, and we get to know each person that we're able to notice truly behavioral changes and question things that maybe a different stage in the dementia is rearing its ugly head, or perhaps there's something else going on. We get to know our clientele and the families, and they trust us, and it's a really special thing to see the families watch from the side or from behind that their person is engaged and motivated and doing things that they didn't really think they could do before or ever thought they would see them do. And when you see the families connecting in that way, and then they're able to follow through, and you give them other opportunities to do when you're not there, for example, then you know you're really making an impact on their lives.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So if families are looking for kind of opportunities and outlets to engage their loved ones at home and don't know where to start, where do they start? What would you recommend that they think about? Do they stop and think about what did they like in the past and try to resurrect that?
The first thing you need to think about is, who was that person that you're looking at now? What were the most important things to them in their lives? Was it their religion? Was it their beliefs? Was it what likes did they have? What did they do as in their former employment that you could try and figure out, or as we do a lot of phone consulting now and really help a lot of families throughout North America try and design a program that they can do together. And what we're finding now, and what you were speaking about in the previous hour, is that the younger generation, believe it or not, really want to get engaged and learn and be involved with their grandparent. And we're doing a lot of intergenerational program activity today. They are more accepting to work with their grandparents sometimes than the immediate daughter or son, which is a very interesting aspect right now. It's very daunting and overwhelming to see your parent, who was your rock, who was your mentor, now become your, what's the term? Your charge, right? This is someone that you need to look after. And some children take it on in stride, and they really do everything in their power. And the families that have worked with us, they turn themselves around 360, that their whole lives are completely different just by changing a few things that they do throughout the day and how it's done, whereas other families just sit there and say, well, they're not the same person, and I can't be around it. And that's where we're able to come in and facilitate these things. But the grandchildren today are really interested, whether it's because there is access about Alzheimer's, dementia, aging on the Internet, which is a positive aspect of the technology, that they're able to see that they can do things. And what's really important for families to know is it doesn't have to be a long period of time. 3 to 5 minutes of a really positive experience, whether it's having a conversation, listening to music, reading together, it depends, what their levels are, is much more impactful than sitting and staring at the person for 40 minutes and getting uncomfortable and saying, okay, what can I do? What should we do? Or asking them, so what would you like to do right now? Well, they're not going to be able to answer that. But if you provide an outlet, an opportunity, and present it in the right way, most likely they're going to pick it up and start doing it.
Wonderful. Well, this has been a fascinating conversation. I think you've given people a lot of great ideas. And how can they get a hold of you? What's the best mode for people to reach out to you?
The best way is to shoot an email to us at info at rayofsunshine.ca and let us know what you're doing presently and what we can further enhance. We have designed programs that we've sent to families after some phone consulting and figuring out. We guide people on what type of materials people could use to do their own interventions. We've done Skype programs, and there's so much that you can do. What I always often tell people is you're sitting in the kitchen, and your parent's sitting there in the kitchen, and they're sitting at the table with nothing to do, and you're putting the dishes in the dishwasher, engage with them. Have a conversation. And put something that's not going to be, for example, breakable in front of them with a tea towel. If you have to cue them, then say, would it be okay if you would dry this pot for me, for example? Most likely that person's going to pick up that pot, take that tea towel, and dry that pot so meticulously because someone has asked them for assistance.
Mm-hmm.
And through you doing the dishes, them doing the dishes, now they're engaged. Now they're working together. There's purpose, there's activity. I'm just giving that as a quick example. Things around the home. You're sitting and folding laundry and your parent is just sitting there because the caregiver has gone out. Give them a towel to fold. Make use of their abilities.
Mm-hmm. So there's a question they want to know, does insurance cover your services or is it all private pay?
So unfortunately, recreation therapy which is a vital component to the continuum of care, as to date has not been able to be acquired for insurance coverage. So it is a private pay component. But we are striving and working together with different organizations now to try and show the insurance companies, and it's really important that people realize that these type of community services should be part of insurance coverage. But until then, it's private
private pay.
Fee.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, and that's good to know because, again, people then can advocate for that as well. So, well, Marla, we're just about out of time here, so I thank you for all that you've shared with us. We've got just a couple of minutes. If there's one other point that you want to bring home to people, otherwise I'll go ahead and just end the show here.
I just want to let all the listeners know that no matter what level of someone's cognitive abilities are, there's always something that someone can do in an independent fashion. And the most important thing is to speak to someone and use appropriate language in a dignified and respectful way, and you will see a huge change in that person. Because if there's someone who's just sitting around and not doing something, there is so much with the right tools and guidance, and most importantly, love, you can change a person's life daily, just like we do at Ray of Sunshine.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate your time and
well,
really love the work you're doing.
It's so refreshing to be in an audience of people that really want to enhance and enrich people's lives. I think it's so important, and I personally try to advocate the fact that therapeutic recreation is another wonderful field and discipline to help change people's lives, and people should really look into the fact that this discipline and profession is so much more than just leisure. There is a huge component out there. And also, like you were saying, any field in geriatrics, people are going to be getting jobs in the field, and there's a huge need out there. And I encourage anyone who wants to know anything about therapeutic recreation, they should go to the American Therapeutic Recreation Association and look on it, because the career opportunities are endless.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Marla.
Okay, thank you very much.
And I want to thank our audience for listening and participating in the conversation today. It's always wonderful to hear from you. Our next show, again, will be next Tuesday, the 27th, and we hope that you can join us for that one. It's going to be with author Jane Sweeney, the author of Caregiver, My Love Story Facing Dementia. She's quite a powerful powerful, insightful woman. So I think that you will really enjoy her a lot. Next week we will also have our Dementia Chats webinar as well. In the meantime, if you're interested in joining the Purple Angel Project, shoot me an email at Lori, Lori, at alzheimersspeaks.com, and Alzheimer's and Speaks are both plural.com. If you're looking for an Alzheimer's Association anywhere in the world, go to Alzheimer's Disease International. And don't forget to check out Alzheimer's Research and Prevention Foundation for some holistic ideas on how to deal with dementia, and the Alzheimer's studies on or the Alzheimer's team on Facebook for some trials. They've got a new one for frontal temporal lobe and also their tau trial. Until next week, we will talk with you very soon, and have a blessed week. Thank you all. And don't forget to like us. Bye now.
Hey everybody, Jared Sebestier, host of Retire Repurposed. This podcast is dedicated to help people transition into fulfilling and purposeful retirements. Retirement is a big life change. In fact, the two most dangerous years of a person's life are the year they were born and the year they retire. Few people could just flip the switch from working a career 30 or 40 plus years, retiring on Friday, without methodical steps to living what we call a repurposed retirement. To listen now, search Retire Repurposed on your favorite podcast platform, Senior Resource, or Life Audio.